I hear this constantly, and I also hear it from people that should know better. Market researchers, consultants, people that sell this for a living. It's wild how many people mix these things up. When talking about this, most people default to market research because that's the term they're most familiar with. Fewer people can articulate what competitive intelligence is. And market intelligence, most leaders have either never heard of it or think it's a fancier term to describe one of the other two terms. That's the gap we're going to close today. When most people hear these terms, what they're actually picturing is data, a chart, a report, a set of numbers. And that's an incomplete understanding because none of these disciplines are about the data itself. They're really about what the data means and what you should do with it. Here's what happens in a budget conversation. Someone on the leadership team says, we need to invest in market intelligence, and everyone nods. Then it goes to procurement or finance, and someone says, what are we actually buying here? When no one in the room has a clear definition of market intelligence, what actually gets bought is a market research report that has a clear scope, clear definition, and a clear price point. Organizations really need an ongoing interpretive function that never gets funded because it's hard to put on a line item. A market intelligence function looks like overhead expenses or a head count. So when we buy market research instead of market intelligence, we end up with an $80,000 report that doesn't fill the gap, it just checks a box. The underlying gap, which is no continuous read on the market, stays wide open in this situation. The team structure problem is almost worse. Company decides that they need market intelligence, so they hire an analyst. But because no one's defined what market intelligence is in that organization, the analyst mandate is fuzzy from day one. So the analyst manager thinks that they're doing competitive intelligence, gathering together battle cards, looking at what competitors are doing. The VP of strategy thinks they're doing ongoing market monitoring. Marketing thinks they're doing customer research. As a result, this one person's being pulled in three directions and delivering a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but nothing particularly well. 6 months in, everyone's frustrated. The analyst feels like they're failing. Management's wondering if they made the right investment, and everybody feels like they should be doing something else with these resources. The problem was never the person. The problem was the organization needed to decide what it was building from the outset. When these terms get blurred, organizations end up assembling something that's little bits of all of these things, but not really proficient at any one of them. You get a dashboard that tracks some competitor activity, a quarterly report that talks about what's happening in the market, and maybe a survey once a year. It might look like a market intelligence function on paper, but there's no interpretive layer, no connection to leadership decisions, no one asking, what does this mean and what should we do about it? What gets built is an information collection habit, not an intelligence function. And the organization doesn't realize the difference until they're sitting in a strategy meeting and someone in the organization asks a question that they can't answer with the data that they've collected. So the friction isn't just semantic, it shows up in real roles, real dollars, and real capabilities. They either get built properly or they don't. And by the time most organizations realize that that confusion was the root cause, they spent a year or two of resources on the wrong things and they don't have the right outcomes to show for it. There's a principle in design. Form follows function. The shape of the tool should be determined by what it's intended to do. That applies directly here. If you mislabel the function that you need, you build the wrong thing. You hire the wrong person, you buy the wrong service, and you set the wrong expectations. Can a knife open a can? Sure, but it's going to do a crappy job and you might lose a finger in the process. Can opener would be better. And that's exactly what happens when an organization reaches for market research when they should be building an ongoing market intelligence function. The research will get you something, but it's the wrong tool for the job, and the results that you get are going to be kind of rough. Market research can answer a defined question like, is there a demand for this product right now? And get you an answer right away that you can act on. This is the right tool when you have an idea or a hypothesis that you need to test in the market. Usually you're starting your hypothesis with an I believe statement and looking for ways to validate or invalidate that hypothesis with your research. For example, I believe some customers want a turnkey solution and other customers want something customized. I could test that in the market with market research. So it produces a report, a data set, and a snapshot in time. But it does have limitations. It's retrospective, project-based, and not ongoing. Competitive intelligence is the tracking and analysis of what your competitors are doing, planning, and capable of. It's the right tool when you want to track a specific competitor, respond to a market move, or prepare for a sales conversation. It produces targeted insights on a specific competitor or set of competitors, but it's focused on competitors and not the broader market environment. So you could be missing out on some important intelligence. Market intelligence is the function that makes sure your strategy is informed by what's actually happening outside your organization's walls. It shouldn't just be a one-time snapshot. It should be something you do on an ongoing basis. It's the right tool when you need ongoing decision support, leadership alignment, or a project-specific outcome. It produces a continuous interpreted view of the market that connects to your organization's decisions. Market intelligence has an important advantage. It's the umbrella that incorporates the other two disciplines to paint a complete picture of what's happening in the market. I always recommend a market assessment. This is a report that uses market intelligence data to answer a specific go-to-market question. If we go to the market with this new product, will it be successful? Competitive intelligence and market research are going to be components of that exercise to ensure that we know the direction the market is going for that product. Competitive intelligence will help you understand if market share is shifting to a specific competitor, but it won't be able to tell you why it's shifting to that competitor. If you see that market share is shifting, you need to understand why so you know the strategy to mitigate it. The why will come from a combination of market research and market intelligence. If you're looking to the future, the strategy always needs to be based on market intelligence. Market research will map actual outcomes against forecasted outcomes that are generated by the market intelligence. You should do that research regularly throughout the 3-year plan to make sure that you're on the right track as you're implementing the plan. I think it's important to note that well-run organizations update their strategy quarterly, but you should be updating your strategy at least once a year to make sure that you're responding to market conditions as they change. We often use all three in conjunction. Market research and competitive intelligence become feedstocks into the larger market intelligence exercise. They're very valuable data points. These aren't competing tools. They serve different purposes at different moments in the process. Knowing which to reach for is in itself a strategic skill. The main mistake I see is people using one tool when they should be using multiple tools at different steps during the process. Individually, each of these tools are going to give you about 30% of what you need. So you got to ask yourself, would you want to make a big bet with only half of the information that you could potentially get? Probably not. So you're going to get some really useful data that's time-bound and answers specific questions. But it's harder to use market research to answer questions that you don't think of before you commission the research. A market intelligence function within an organization can provide data on an ongoing basis so that you have data available that can answer questions that you have as they come up. I'd recommend that people at least think about how to build a market intelligence function within their organization. And when in doubt, bring in a market intelligence expert to help you build that function. If you found this useful, follow along. We talk about market intelligence, strategy, and how to make better decisions with this intelligence every month. And if you want to go deeper, the link in the description takes you to our guide on what market intelligence really is.